access to basic education. And we also have now slowly rolling in access. It's not yet universal, and it's not yet necessarily free, but we've made quite a lot of progress in ensuring that there is a greater access to higher education. These two considerations are quite important for when you interpret the unemployment statistics, more especially over the two age groups that I've just spoken about. And I'll tell you how, as young professionals, we affect both age groups and our role in both age groups. So I'm going to start with the 15 to 24. With the 15 to 24, these are mostly your high school towards university. So in this dimension, we expect that an average young South African should be in the midst of completing the high school education, and also now going in through to higher education, where they go to technical school colleges, they go to universities, or any other areas where they can advance their education so that they can get meaningful education to be able to participate in what you call the labor market and the economy meaningfully. So that is what is very important within this age. So it's normally quite a developmental age. Now, we as young professionals, our role, and when I say young professionals, it doesn't matter if you started being a professional at the age of 23 or at the age of 27, but this is where our role is. One, we have links, direct links with the communities that we are exactly from. And that is where it is the easiest and most convenient to always give back. These children and these kids that are within this age group are easily within our access due to the institutions that we have within the periphery of our communities. But we should not only limit it to that. I mean, we have seen that quite a number of young people do still have that contact of going back to the high schools, going back to motivate, giving career talks, and this thing should be a continuous thing. Why does this help? Because once young people drop out within this age group without getting one, the relevant skills that are marketable for the economy, or the relevant education for them to be able to get into employment, what then becomes of them within this age group? The other thing is that we also have quite an important role. We need to also participate in creating opportunities of employment. So it means we have dual responsibilities. One is to make sure that us, those that are still within the age group, perform to their expected roles and responsibilities so that they are employable, so that their skills can are marketable. But on top of that, you need to now create a chain where you then say those that have come after you get easier access to the type of, whether you do it as motivation, whether you do it as career guidance, whether you do it as counseling, because a lot of them, you'd find that some would even drop out for socio-economic factors, some will drop out for psychological issues, some come from broken homes, some have challenges with university access because of poverty. A simple application fee, a simple gesture of sharing knowledge, it can do a lot so that we can save as many of our young unemployed South Africans as possible within that first age group of 15 to 19. So that is just in a structured way the role that us as young people can give. And these things don't need necessarily to cost money. They don't need to be expensive. I'm saying this because we really need to realize that we are at a tipping point whereby if we don't contribute towards making our country work better for us and for all the young people who are actually contributing towards building this ticking time bomb, that when it erupts, the country can go into a state of no return, where anarchy, where you're going to see, following this sharp rise in unemployment, you're going to see a sharp rise in crimes, a sharp rate in your murders, a sharp rate. So it shows you that there is instability in the social fiber because more and more young people are becoming disgruntled, are losing hope. They no longer want to seek jobs. So that is the recipe. That is quite a recipe for disaster for us. So then we move to the second age group. The second age group is from 25 up until 34. This is a special type of age group because majority of them, you'd find that now they've qualified. They have the university degree, they have an honors, they have this. Some are also pursuing additional postgraduate qualification in the hope of finding employment. Now, here's where the big challenge is. And here's where we also need to form part of fixing a system that also messed us up. Majority of the unemployed graduates find that they are custodians to degrees or or educations or skill set that necessarily don't speak to the demands of the employment market currently. And that is what is causing a frustration. You find somebody who has a master's degree, you find somebody who has an honors degree, you find somebody with a PhD who can't find employment, who can't find work. So, one of the key roles that we need to start playing, because once you have access to some form of employment, once you have access to some form of empowerment, automatically you start carrying the responsibility of making sure that those who come after you get easier access to what you struggled to get. So, in this case of the age group of 25 to 34, we play dual roles. One is that in our spheres of influence, where we are working as young people, we need to get in and open the doors for more young people. We need to advocate for work environments that accommodate young people. Within the government space, we've seen a call saying that we need to now remove all experience requirements for entry to middle management jobs and even senior management jobs and allow young people in, because how are we going to get these young people in if there's a barrier of experience? The other is that we need to also start changing the demographic view and the anatomical view and structure of our universities. That is space that we need to participate. When I say as a young person, one of my key roles is making sure that I participate in fixing a system that messed me up. We need to make sure, one, there's very serious investment in cost when it comes to higher education. You can imagine how much it costs to pay for somebody to go through and get a PhD. Now, when you get a PhD in a certain field where we know it's not going to be market related, where we know you're going to struggle to get employment. So one of the key things is that we need to make sure we restructure. We must play a role within the university structures. Now that we know better, we are educated, we've gone through the structures. And I'm saying this because we should not lose sense of where the head and tail of struggle is. It's a vicious cycle where you can't necessarily pinpoint that this is where the struggle must come. That's why when you bring in solutions, we say, as young people, let's join forces, let's join hands, and continuously roll out these solutions together. Because if we wait, if I say no, you know what, as Dr. Mukumo, currently employed under a hospital managing and supervising 8 hospitals, this will be my sphere of influence. So this is the only place where I can make a difference. But you forget that there are multiple platforms where we can contribute to the universities, where we can contribute to the Department of Higher Education, where we must agitate for this type of change that we want to see. Because we are the only ones who can deliver the kind of future that we want to see. So I'm saying this so as to not limit our scope of what it is we can achieve. Now, on the last aspect of this, for the age group of 25 to 34, we also need to look at the barriers that are currently existing in towards creating employment, in towards participating meaningfully within the economy. From where we need to start And employment is a starter pack. We must not only look at climbing the ladders and saying, oh, one day I'll be CEO, one day I'll become a senior manager, one day I'll become a managing partner. The moment you start earning is the time where you also not need to start participating meaningfully. You need to start experimenting with business. You need to start looking at how you can monetize the ideas that you have for a better South Africa. That is one of the best ways that we can converge. And we also need to learn to work with each other. One of the biggest barriers and the biggest cause of dreams that have gone unwitnessed, unrealized, it's because you harbor a dream, you harbor a vision. More often than not, you will need other people to be able to implement that vision to its fruition. So if you do not create an environment where we can synergize, where we can work with each other, work with different professionals. As I started as a doctor, but you need to know how to work with consultants, work with lawyers, work with accountants. I'm now in agriculture, so I must find ways of being able to work with farmers, being able to work with agricultural economists. So what I'm saying is that all the ideas that we have to better the society, create employment for the others, the likelihood is more often than not, we will host and harbor the vision, but we need to be able to gather relevant people to make sure that this dream of ours becomes a reality. If we don't do that, we will be the first people who make sure that we auction our dreams off. So that is in a nutshell for the two age groups. The other thing is that I want to say that with the experience that we've accrued over the years from the different roles that we've played in society, one of the most difficult things that one is to continuously confront with being a leader is that you will also be confronted with personal challenges, community challenges, which you also need to overcome. I'll give an example. Uh, a lot of professionals shy away from the political arena. One of the major reasons why professionals shy away from that is that a lot of the time it's not a neat environment to be in. It's not an above board. Competition doesn't happen in a fair way. It's not always the best that wins. But if I can tell you that the unfortunate thing is if we don't find ways to get in, even when we lose, still get in, even when we are cheated and looted out of our own opportunities that we deserve, still go back in, have the courage to clean yourself up and say, we will not leave this space unoccupied, unguarded, because that political arena holds the keys to what we call state power and the state machinery. Now, all of these dreams, all of these visions, all of these ideas that are collectively within our intelligentsia, they can become accelerated and realized way much better when you have such type of a machinery as the state to be able to either empower or support the realization of these dreams. That is the unfortunate truth. So if you leave the keys to the state machinery to people who don't have this vision, who are selfish, who only want to empower themselves, who only see a vision of a better future as elevating from being a millionaire into a billionaire, and they only see themselves and don't take the community with, we will forever be in trouble as a country and as a continent, and we will forever be that so rich but so poor kind of a continent. So that is the biggest problem that we have. And unfortunately, as young people, our parents have fought to take the country back and implement a democratic system. And now we need to fight to guard the keys to state power and ensure those within state power drive the vision that we want to see for a better future. There is no other way. If we decide to do it outside of the state, one, it is not that it is impossible, but it will take longer. It might not be even something that is realized within our lifetime. So, if we want to make sure that within our lifetime we do the best for our people, because this kind of leadership at this level is a continuous war that we need to fight on a day to day. It is tough, it requires absolute sacrifice. It is not as glorious as people make it seem. It must be a lifestyle for us to put our people first. It must be the most supreme character that we publish first. We must preach about that. That will become our reality. Very few, when we get to the end of that race, will have the stripes to prove it. People will get tired and start saving themselves. People will get tired and start looting. People will get tired. But I tell you, if we want to build this country, it will not be built by a messiah. It will not be built by a genius idea. It is not going to be built by the ultra rich and the billionaires, because we have now forsaken our role as young professionals and all of a sudden thought that the rich are now here to come back and save us. If we look at the trends globally, not just in our country, globally, the pandemic taught us one thing. One is that we were scammed. The biggest scam of the century was to be told that there's some type of trickle down economics that happens. That when people get ultra rich somehow, somewhere within the peripheries, in the communities, that wealth will trickle down. But we've not seen that. In fact, what we've seen is the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, statistically in every country. And then what has happened as an aftermath of that? The rich people use their wealth to manipulate the dynamics of democracy so that they can fiddle with and get the country that they want for themselves. I'm talking fact. I'm talking what has happened. I'm talking what is continuing to happen. So the only saviors of the country, of the disenfranchised, unemployed young people, it is us as empowered young people who've had opportunities to at least have some level of resource. You don't need to be a millionaire to start. Starting up a simple business. Now, in closing, so that we can open up the dialogue part, the barriers that we are facing, these barriers, believe it or not, at some point we forget that the state does not exist in isolation. And not everyone that fiddles around the state, especially the three fears, has good intentions for us. There are people who deliberately want to weaken and compromise the state for their own selfish reasons or for whatever. But we, as young professionals, need to understand that there is no other home that can accelerate the realization of whether you use the Freedom Charter as a reference, whether you use the ideals of the Constitution as a reference, but it does not matter. All of those speak about a better future and better lives for all South Africans, creating a prosperous future for all South Africans. If that is really indeed the goal that we wish to achieve, we need to start changing how we do business and how we relate with each other and start taking the responsibility that we have. Some people will say, no, this is a radical transformation. We're not talking rhetoric, we're talking practical ABCs of how to empower back young people, how to empower back our communities in all sectors so that young people, women, and all people can benefit from this. We must be aware. The last tip is that we must be very, very aware of the illiterate graduate. Now, those are those Balorengi, when they are with us, when you graduate and they kept you, they are there amongst us. They are with us, but not with us. They are illiterate graduates. They are certified, but they are not competent. They are decorated, but they are uninspired. They lack identity, yet they are advising culture. They are morally bankrupt, and yet they will preach renewal and revival at every corner to hide their shenanigans. They will scam us until the end of times because they are best positioned to never liberate, but always masquerading as leaders, promising you a better future tomorrow. And it is always tomorrow. It is never now, it is always tomorrow. It is never now, it is always tomorrow. So be very, very careful because there are those people amongst us who are cancerous and opportunistic. We must be careful because those are the worst. When they collude, when they corrupt, when we hear of the judges that sell cases, when we hear of the doctors that kill patients, when we hear of the policemen that facilitate bribes, when we hear of every time we hear stories like that, they erode the confidence of society and they deepen us in the depression. And this inaction catches us like a tumor. So I will end it there so that we can uh, have dialogue and engagement. Thank you very much, my chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Daniel Mukumo. That was very insightful and very interesting in terms of the discussion that we intended to have today, looking into issues that are affecting young people and relatively also affecting the old, because you cannot speak about the young without an element of the old. Just before I open it up for discussion to the general public that are in attendance here, I would just want to pick your mind on the following three issues. Number one, and I'm asking it on the basis of the nature and objectives of the organization, which, amongst many other things, is linked to the land question. And then the other question is also to just also get to have your understanding, because I heard you speaking about the role that young professionals have, because I think also the other element that you don't want to create is to say to those that have not gotten opportunities, we create an independency theory whereby they get to believe that the only way they can be emancipated is that they must wait for others to come and assist them. You've also spoken about the issues of people pretending to be assisting others. Well, in actual fact, they are not willing to give those solutions to those young people who are having challenges. My issue on the third question is also to speak about how then, as young professionals like yourself and many others that have joined us here today, also get to contribute to the total emancipation of young people. I'll start with the first question. What then should be the attitude of young people towards the land question? Because it seems as if like young people have no interest towards land in terms of either occupying land or having interest in the utilization of land. Is the issue being the fact that they do not have access to it, or they have access to it, they just don't want to utilize it for the benefit of themselves and others that are surrounding them? And then the second issue is on the systematic challenges that young people are continuously facing in terms of opportunities. You find young people that are qualified, they are professionals, but opportunities are just limited, or rather, opportunities are being blocked for them to access. What then should be the attitude towards getting those opportunities? And then the last issue is the issue on education. You yourself, I know you are well educated. I just want to understand, like, how do you then inspire a young person to acquire more education when there are others who have lesser education, but then yet they've accumulated more economic opportunities? How then do we answer the question of education is still important, and how do we make use of the education that we have acquired, in terms of creating those opportunities, or rather looking into the emancipation of young people?
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, you've raised some pertinent questions, very important questions that we need to be addressing, and questions that as a country, I feel that we've been approaching very wrongly. Now, I'll start first with the land question. Now, as a farmer myself, I know and I embrace the value of land. And one of the biggest problems that we've had is the issue of access. Remember, one of the worst mistakes that we make is that to think we don't need what we don't know we don't need. I'm going to be very brief on this. As Africans, when land was dispossessed from our ancestors and our forebearers, one of the worst things that happened is we're disenfranchised and disconnected from attaching our own liberation with the resettlement and reoccupation of the land. In fact, many young people today don't realize that a lot of the opportunities that we seek should first and foremost come from this very land. If we look at the pattern of land ownership within the country, majority of the arable land is still within the hands of the white people. Majority of what you call large land parcels is in the hands of white commercial farmers. Now, there's always this funny rhetorical question that is made. No, if you want young people to start appreciating land, why don't they also go to the villages and get those grazing lands from their grandmothers or this, or then they'll also use this other nice example where they say, no, community X, the community was given this farm, and 3 years after everything was torn apart, it's no longer farming. You know the examples of in Zanin, the tea plantation that was exporting, currently dysfunctional. We know in Guyana, the 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 the, the the sunflower processing plant that was producing cooking oil and all other processed products of sunflower. We know the current burning example of Zebediela citrus plantation, which was exporting citrus into the rest of the world, and currently is caught in between squabbles of who owns what, who should do this, who should do that, and is no longer producing. Now, all of these examples, I'm going to give you examples, just a short answer to them, because I don't want us to be trapped in the vicious cycle of self-critique and where it is unnecessary, where it is not warranted. One, you can't take young people who don't have the relevant experience, because that disenfranchising means that we used to live on our own farming habits. We used to sustain ourselves on farming, but for generations now, we have not been farming because there's not been any land. So all of a sudden, you then use a cohort of people, you give them land. You don't give them the relevant support. You don't give them the relevant skills. People need to be re-skilled on farming. Farming, by the way, is not a special skill. It's a survival tool. The same way that we teach people how to brush their teeth, how to bath, how to do this, it should be incorporated within those daily activities, how to farm, how to plant your own food, how to sustain yourself. It's not a specialized science. What we allowed to happen was that we took it and specialized it into this agricultural science. Back in the days, our grandmothers would farm enough for communities. Our people never starved. Our grandfathers farmed enough without having yet participated within the formal agricultural science sectors. Yes, we admit that There's issues around global warming. There's issues around farming practices that have modernized, and that is where the education part becomes important. But on a basic, if we're talking, every South African must be taken back so that we reverse this disenfranchisement that we've suffered, this psychological erasing of a basic skill such as farming. That is the first order of the day. Then people will understand when we give them the land, when land is awarded, they will attach that importance. Now, land in itself is an economy. The fact that government to this date, almost 30 years post-democracy, have not figured out a reasonable and a reliable way to be able to give back land to the majority of the people tells us that we're in crisis. Because even the very government right now does not know how important this land is to our people. So that answers the issue of the land question. The institutions that have been structured, I'm a farmer. I struggle to get access to land bank because the requirements are ridiculous. And I'm a professional. So I can here and there put 20,000 into the farm and do this. But what about somebody who has the skills, by the way, but does not have access to resources to be able to put themselves in a position where they can get those grants? So some of these opportunities that are masqueraded also to us, they make it look like, but black people are lazy, but black people don't take advantage of opportunities. Yes, roll the dice. If you are the lucky one, you get in and bring others in. But in majority, when it comes to farming and food supply, we must not be talking of luck. It must be something that is as widely practiced as bathing and as cooking. So I hope that answers the issue of land. Currently, I'll talk now. I'll give an example of myself. We took advantage of some of the existing land parcels or farms that are available because we don't need to wait for the system to be perfect for us to start. So within your community, guys, take advantage of the free land that is there where there's water and start planting. I drive around villages and I see that there are some, you will see in some households, there's spinach, there's this for sustenance. Now imagine if the whole village was doing that. It automatically means that no one in that village goes to a food lovers to go and buy spinach. Now that money can be rediverted elsewhere. So it's very important that we start. Don't be ashamed of starting small. Start in your backyard, then go out and look at community land. You don't need to wait for a perfect 500-hectare farm with irrigation, water use rights, and soil sampling, and a perfect business plan for you to start participating in farming. So we're encouraging all young people that get back, get your head into this to say that every one of us, no matter who you are, whether you are, guys, you are a farmer first before you are anything. Because if you can't produce your own food, then you can't ensure your own sustainability. I can have 3 PhDs, but if I can't even feed myself, those 3 PhDs are useless. So our education system has taught us to shy away from this thing of farming, getting dirty, and we've seen it as they don't have anything to do. And in fact, they don't have options. And if you look at it, when somebody says I'm a farmer, we always in our brain imagine the picture of a poor man uh, uh, who's not even riding on the tractor, because majority of these farms you're still finding black people in actual fact doing the farming. Those are the farmers. Those ones are business managers. So let us be farmers, all of us first before we are anything. Then we will learn to value land. There's no investment anywhere else in the world which will give you dividends like farming. I can say that openly. There is no investment anywhere in the world that can give you dividends like farming. So why is it that it is still such a sacred thing that people shy away from it? People don't want to start with it. People don't want to do this. So we need to get our people back. and understand that they've been mentally damaged to not realize that farming in itself is not only a career or this, it's a way of life. It must be a way of life for all of us. The last one, the issue of education. Why should people get more access to more education? One of the biggest problems that we have, and I always say this when within the university spaces, is that we and I say this with the greatest of respect to issues around accessing of education. If we were to look at all the courses offered by universities right now, half of them can be closed down and be given on what you call open access universities, meaning you don't really need to go to university to learn that. You don't need to go to university to learn theology. You don't need to. And we thank the fact that technology has even taught us that there's online, there's online, because education is about getting a degree that certifies that you have a relevant competency in line with relevant knowledge, in line with the relevant profession. So half of the people going to university don't need to go to university to get taught what they're getting taught in universities. They don't need to even pay to get taught that. It's a scam. The university should be focusing on giving output related with the economic maturation process. Right now, moving from your fourth industrial revolution to your fifth industrial revolution, universities should be teaching what we call scarce and sacred skills. You don't need to go to university to be taught how to be a teacher. I know that a lot of us, because we've grown up being groomed into this structure, that no, you must go to university, get a degree, get a master's, get this, get that, and then you put your CV on with somebody else. Guys, I'm telling you this, half of the courses that are offered there are meaningless towards the economic maturation of the country, meaning that you can literally end up with a PhD that will not actively contribute to the economy. Now, then, why are you studying? Is it a legacy project that you are studying? Why should a legacy project cost money? Because the same amount of money you spend taking someone to go to a PhD, if you would take that money, well, I'm now taking an example from what Israel did. Israel has the biggest grants for young people in what we call research and development. They say, bring your ideas, we will fund them. The moment your idea works and it becomes commercial, we can commercialize it. As the government, we will invest in you. That's why research and development is the biggest output of Israel. And they're using young people. They're not using PhD graduates, people who have 30 publications, where those publications don't speak to the society and the challenges that we face. They've said to young people, bring your ideas here. The moment you have an idea, we vet it and we think this is a good idea. We will fund you to explore the idea. If the solution you get out of that research that you have done, that we have funded, becomes commercializable, where you can sell it, where it can improve the country, as government, we will fund you. We will partner with you. So that speaks to the education things. Not that education is not important, but we now need to look, because not all education currently is not necessarily saying important, because one can even argue that we need the preachers, we need the philosophers, we need the artist and creative art sections. But what we're saying is that we should not be paying to have access to some of these things. We're just participating in a structured scam. Why is it so difficult for us to say decentralize this thing and use technology and give people access to those certificates once they meet the requirements and they pass the test? But reserve the university space for sacred access, where you need to go and participate in the research and development side of things. Channel your research outputs to meaningful contribution towards the community. Then you will see in 3 years' time, this country will start researching its own solutions, will start piloting up its own companies that can solve meaningful that can contribute meaningfully to our communities, even with this issue of putting young people in reliable funding models and reliable models to access land, so that we don't need to roll a dice. And then you are lucky because you are from next door and your uncle knows somebody who knows somebody. But it can be opportunities for everyone. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Doctor. I think you've actually answered quite a number of issues that I'd had on my side. I'm not going to waste much time and make it a dialogue between ourselves. We have an audience that is in attendance, so I'm going to ask. They actually already asked in the chat group to say that those that may have questions may really may put in their questions on. I have on the side of the chat box. Vukosi Msimik, he asked the question: how can young people gain access to this land? We have programs by universities where they teach how to manage land, but how is the access, to the land? So that is the first question that I have in the chat box. I'm also going to open up questions on the floor. Those that may want to ask a question, you may raise your hand. We'll recognize you in the order you have raised your hand. But then in the meantime, while we're still waiting for hands, you may answer to this question of how does young people get access to land? Because already we have institutions that are offering curriculums on how to manage the land. But the question then comes, one, we already know we don't have access to land. How do we get access to the land that we are being taught to manage?
Yes. First and foremost, um, we need to participate, and I'm very glad that there's rounds now that are being done on land bills, and there's guys, as young people, let's participate. Let's make our voices heard. Let's get up and care and matter. Uh, if we don't change the legislative frameworks, we will never realize land reforms in our lifetime. I mean, it's very easy. You need just bold leadership. I'm not saying, for example, if you see what people always threaten us with is this the Zimbabwe experience. If you go and grab land, all white people, country is going to be collapse. And then, but let's look at this. One, you simply say we're expropriating on land, all the land in foreign ownership, and that there must be no direct or indirect foreigner who must own land in this country. There's no one. Owning land is a right passed on. So we cannot, that's the first space, is that there must be no direct or indirect ownership of land by foreigners in South Africa. If you want to come and own land, come and become a citizen of this country. Then we know you're committed to this country. Then you can start owning land. But somebody sitting in America and they're a trust fund baby and they are buying out land. In fact, the crisis that Africa is going to see is that there's currently, if you actually look, Central and West Africa, majority of big law firms, big investing firms and investment, they are rushing to buy land and own land in countries. These people will own our country without even staying in this country, without even belonging in this country. So that's the first place. You take all this land that is owned by foreigners and you put it in through to land parcels. One of the best programs and most successful programs, we take an example from Zambia, where we come and we say, hey, a young person who wants to come and farm, we're no longer building you an RDP in cluster townships where there's 50,000 of you in 10 hectares and you're squashed up like sardines. So we come and we say, on this land that we have now taken, I can give you places where we can take this land and it's not going to even be a halabaloo. Those old white Afrikaners are there, but they shouldn't even be a priority right now. Systemically, we can get there because I will tell you some of what they call risks, inherited risks of these land reform programs. So you first take from the foreigners. the land you take from the foreigners, the land that is already in the hands of the government. You then say we are giving land parcels. When we build you that RDP, we give you a 10-hectare farm, and your responsibility is that you must farm and produce yield that you will sell. We don't want, but the moment you stop producing, you lose your entitlement to stay there. You leave, and somebody else who wants to produce can come and live there. No more entitlement. You can come and stay there. I can tell you this. In less than 2 to 3 years, everyone who's staying there, if they're producing, will have more than enough money to now go and buy their own plots, to now go and buy their own houses, to now be sustainable within the agricultural sector. So then every 2 to 3 years, that land gets new owners, because once you make enough to move out, you move out. This thing of permanent RDPs, and then when people now start participating meaningfully and you grow, you have a job, then you even take your RDPs. What we're seeing in the townships, RDPs are now rented to foreigners in the hubs of crimes and illegalities. So stop doing these programs of just building RDPs in townships. Build an RDP on a 10-plot hectare and say that the condition to stay there is that you must farm. We'll give you a starter pack. Yeah, we're already doing some of that. We're giving seedlings, we're giving starter packs. Give people seedlings, give them access to reasonable land. It's for their own integrity, and give them an opportunity to empower themselves. We're not giving you a handout. We're not giving you an RDP and 350. No, we're giving you a house that has some level of integrity and dignity. We're giving you land. We're giving you a starter pack, and we're giving you an opportunity to own it and produce meaningfully. And if you don't produce, you move out and give somebody who deserves that chance. That is one of the ways. The other, which is this one, which becomes a difficult thing, because every time you try and touch on big white commercial farmers, they tell you no, they're going to leave with their skills, they're going to leave with their what. Look, there's threats to food security. True. Why? Because currently majority of the white commercial farmers, even the ones funded by the land bank, they're white. Now we're not saying we don't want the white farmers, we don't want, but we're saying that the commercial white farmers also need to be able to appreciate the injustices of the past and come through to proactively form part of the solutions. Now you have a white farmer with 10 farms. He's only farming on 2. As government, you should be allowed to expropriate without compensation and take the 8. For as long as he's not farming. And the good thing is that as long as he's farming, it will contribute within the economy, jobs will be created. So for as long as that land is active or not active, we must take it away. Must not be apologetic about that. Land is not a trophy. That is how you roll out this thing of now building a new generation of people that you return dignity stolen from their forefathers. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Now questions are now being interesting. I see there are 2 hands that are raised here. There's Dr. Khoza, who has raised a hand, and also Vukosi has also raised a hand. But then before I get to these 2, people in the audience, I also just want to check with the chairperson of the association, Mr. Matumi Chidi, just to provide a legal perspective on the issue of land access. Mr. Chidi, are you ready to can make a comment now? Mr. Chidi?
Chair of the session.
Thank you. Are you ready to make a comment?
Well, I agree with Dr. Mukumo. In his perspective, and the legal part as well. There's not much of a problem that we have in the country for purpose of facilitation of access to land. We need only not even bold, but just leadership, basic leadership. You don't need what you may call bold leadership, because the constitution is out there. It commands the state to facilitate access to land, and what the state must do, it must bring about the necessary law to implement constitutional provision. But that leadership for the past 29 years, and we are turning 30 years as a democracy next year, that leadership, it's not forthcoming, and that is a political dynamic to matters of leadership. The law allows us, we need only political leadership that is ready. We haven't had that. We don't know whether in future we may have that, or whether inherently we will go where all others go when leadership fails, and all others at some stage they take responsibility for their own lives, because you cannot wait for a sleeping leader all the time. At some stage you lead yourselves. So that revolution will come at some point if there's no leadership. So I chair of the session. I don't intend to add much. In essence, I agree with the guest, Dr. Mukumo. Pradeni, I think he spoke well, and I agree with him. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair of the association. Without any waste of time, I'd like to call Dr. Khoza. Dr. Khoza, I think the opportunity is yours. Fill us in terms of the discussions that we are having now.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. My take on this, I'm going to be a bit controversial, is Dr. Mukumo, you talked a lot about the farming side of the business, but there's also the part where the business has to sell its produce to a particular person, and in that space, it's closed up. You see, you're talking about food lovers and everyone. Now, our people are constantly going to buy all these things that they can literally get from the grain lady that's at the corner of some of these shops, but you don't see them going there. And those people are also the people that we I call us consumers. We as consumers of the farms that you are talking about all those places that you're going to take. We send a guy with a bucket to go to the farm to buy. That guy comes back, he sells the produce to these ladies. And where do us professionals go to buy the produce that we can literally get from these people? We go to the very same shop. So our mindset starts from, yes, we get the farms back, followed by the people that need to buy these things. They must understand, if we don't support our own, then we are creating a problem for our own. We are constantly, when we get our salaries, rush to this Pick and Pay, Checkers, Food Lovers, and we buy the food from there. So we as professionals need to start getting it. By us supporting someone else who takes the money elsewhere, we are creating a problem for South Africa. Already in the villages, you find foreigners selling to us, while in the same space, there is a black person that's sitting there selling. He can't get even one customer. And when the business fails, we blame, we say, people are doing so. My point to the committee is, as soon as you get somewhere, you need to support your own to get our own sorted out. But if we keep doing this thing of we're gonna, okay, get the farm, okay, we're gonna write the laws to get the farm, but we don't deal with the consumer who needs to consume this stuff, we are constantly gonna have a problem. So the first part I wanted to talk to you is that, guys, let's not only fix the one part where we get the land. Yes, I know we don't have the land yet, but even the consumer has a part to play in this. And bad luck for us is the consumer is us. If you read any document that talks about consumer, about 70% it's either the black professional or the same people who can't get jobs. They're the same people who will rush to go to Checkers and say, we want to buy things that they can buy from the lady in the corner. So that's my point. And the second point I wanted to talk to, how do we get people to understand education is still important? It's simple. We are not saying don't go study medicine, don't go study dentistry, don't go and study pharmacy. But those are not where the problems are. If people just look where the problems are, water and sanitation, jobs are there, but people are not applying because nobody's doing anything in those courses to recycle the water that we're already using. And when we try and get people to apply to those things, people first look at the amount of money that they are going to get when they come out of these things. Guys, 300 is better than zero. So why not go and study some of these things where the jobs are there? And that's how we get education back to where it's supposed to be. Let's study things that solve the problems and the jobs are there. That's my take on this. Thank you. Chair, was I clear?
No, you were very clear. You were very clear, my leader. And I'm now going to call in my brother, Vukosi. You can take the floor and get to share with us, because I've already seen that you had a question that you asked in the chat box. You may elaborate on that as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Chair. It was more of a comment, and I think I stated there to say comment. And the second part being that I was clapping in agreement with what Dr. Mukumo was saying. However, if I should just elaborate a bit on it and also comment on what Dr. Khoza was saying there. I was saying that, a lot of young professionals, and as much as Dr. Mukumo has presented, a lot of young professionals would find themselves in different areas. For example, you are from Ilim, like myself, and you end up finding yourself working in a place like Rustenburg in the northwest. So you'd find that there are challenges, especially with issues of how is it that I can really access this land. But the first thing is that if you really want to, you can actually get it. One of the things that would be a good start is start at home. So you still have connections at home. You still have people that are at home and people that are still plowing in those rural areas. So that is the first point where you'd really start and want to get something and want to participate in that. The second option being that in whatever area that you are in, you'd want to go around and ask and also see how is it that you can better contribute to that community, because you are actually part of that community, you understand? And the last part being that you need to also attend sessions, you need to attend programs that are talking much about land. You are talking much about what is it that can be done, how is it that it can be redistributed, how is it that young people can access it. So it then goes back to that issue of saying, let's build up this interest, especially with those timelines, looking at to how young one person is, in high schools, when we're talking about the issues that Dr. Khoza was talking about now, to say, where is it that we can maximize this economic transformation? Where is it that you can see that there's lack of, or there's a gap? If you see that land or agriculture is something that is going to better benefit the country, why not then start it there in that age group, yabo high school and all that, in that age group of your people that are going into universities, so that you can guide them in the correct way of saying, this is actually what is it that you need to do. These are some of the courses that you can actually do that are going to then benefit the country generally. So I'm also touched when Dr. Khoza was talking about, you have this land, you have made it in terms of producing, but however, as a local producer or as a small business, you end up having to sell to the locals, you end up having to sell to those mamazalas. The one and most important thing is that let's go back to those roots. Let's go back and support that mamazala that is there at the corner, first and foremost, because that is actually where we're going to contribute back to our own communities. That's how we're going to maximize contribution of economy back to our own people. Because if you continuously go and say, no, Mina, I've made it, I'm a young professional, I'm driving this and that, and I'm only going to go into food lovers or whatever it is, then there's that big gap there. Dr. Mukumo, when he was presenting earlier, I remember he was talking about, our mothers used to produce this and that. And how I remember the stories that we got from our grandmothers, is that our communities used to take care of each other. The one that is so good about production of cabbage would then give to the one that is good, farming of goats, and that one would give them goat milk or cow's milk and all those kind of things. So to touch on what Dr. Koza was saying, let's just go back to the basics. Let's just support each other, and let's make sure that we create our own brands. If we want a food lovers that is totally black owned, for example, let's start with all these small farms that we can look at. And I'm just talking about land only here. Let's look at the small farms and let's see how is it that we, as whoever young professionals that we are, and we can better contribute to this economy. Let's support the ones that are, still small, and let's build them up. Let's contribute to that growth. So yeah, those are just the small contributions that I wanted to make. And yeah, like I said, it wasn't much of questions. It was comments, but yeah, this is just intriguing. Thank you so much, Chair.
No, thank you very much, my brother. I think I've also scared people when I said questions can be posted and people can ask questions. I think let's just also agree that it is a youth month. Those that may have comments or additional inputs that they may have surrounding the topic, you're more than welcome to can raise your hand and ask those either in the chat box or rather just give it to us verbally. While we are waiting for those that may put in some comments, I would like to also just ask our guests to just deliberate further on some of these things that have been said by the two guys that came from the floor. Dr. Mukumo, are you still available to can make some more inputs on surrounding the topic and also what has been shared in terms of comments from the rest of the colleagues that had shared?
Yes, Chair. No, thank you very much. I think there's a very important comment that I wanted to basically add on from Dr. Koza. And Dr. Koza speaks about the issue of market access because it's one of the things that is also destroying what we call emerging farmers. I'll give a practical example of one of the experiences of a colleague of ours. So we have a elderly pensioner who's worked his whole life, professional, and then goes to pension, takes his pensions, and he wanted to start farming. He wanted to start farming on communal land that he had access to back home. And so he then got a consultant. This consultant was a white farmer. So they were going to plant potatoes. I think it was about almost 100 hectares worth of potatoes. And this man invested half of his pensions into planting, soil preparations, making sure that the land is clean, fertilizers, irrigation systems, buying the seedlings and so forth, and then started the program. Worked tremendously well, had an amazing harvest, and he was projecting to make back his pensions almost 4 to 5 times. Well, half of the pensions that he invested. Then came the issue of where do you now take the potatoes? He asked the very same white farmer who assisted him. Then they then took the potatoes to one of the local markets. If you go to Polokwane, you'll see that there's a big fresh produce market, the agents. So when you're a farmer, you contact an agent, they give you a rate, they weigh your produce, and then they pay you. And then he took it there. The rates that they were giving him were below what he had projected or anticipated. And in fact, if he would have taken that rate, he would have operated at a loss. So then he then further goes and looks for another access to market. Now, I'm not talking a bucket load of potatoes. No. I'm talking 2 trucks worth of potatoes. So then he goes to Tshwane Fresh Market. One of the big problems is that there is systemic exclusion and collusion against emerging black farmers. We cannot neglect that because I've seen it from personal experience where white farmers get rates that are so much higher for same quality produce than black farmers. So black farmers operated almost no profit to loss after that extensive exercise, and white farmers would get. So long story short, this man is now remember there's logistics. He's hired a truck, and we're talking potatoes in the back of a truck. They need to go somewhere. Now, with fresh produce, you run out of time. Time is not on your side. You need to have access to a market and have it soon. Lo and behold, out of desperation, the man ends up taking those logistics for fear of incurring further cost at the risk of not getting in any more additional benefit. Then when you take the head count, labor, everything, that man operated on a loss. And he lost almost 80% of his initial investment. Now I'm saying this to you because the issue of access to market is a real life challenge. How do you bridge this in this day and age? One of the good things, this is one of the good things that have at least happened within the government space. Now, companies like your Saskosem, your Sunbake, and this and that have high consumption of your maize and your wheat products. If you are a maize or a wheat farmer, you can get what we call an offtake agreement, where they contract you to go and plant, and as long as it meets standard, they will buy it to you at a very reasonable rate. And in fact, in some of the cases, they are willing to even invest. They'll come and say, okay, I have 500 hectares, I can only plant 100. Then they'll come and say, okay, no, it's fine. We'll give you the investment to plant the 400, and then you sell it to us at this contracted rate. So some of them, it's opening up. But some in the past were not so lucky. So I know many farmers who went into financial ruin because of not having market access. So before you start, more especially if you are going at a massive scale, where you can't just take it with a truck and go and sell in the community, stop by a stop sign and then sell to those old ladies, you need to make sure that you have good access to market before you scale up, especially at a commercial level. The other thing, which I've learned now from the Afrikaner groups. So the Afrikaner groups have clustered themselves. So you'll find that out of a group of 15 commercial farmers, only one of them has an export license. One of them has access to market domestically, and then one of them has access to processing plants. I'll give you an example: sunflower. So this group, so it's this group of farmers, all plant sunflower. When it's time to harvest, they harvest and then they weigh and say, okay, collectively we have this many tons of sunflower. Then they weigh their options. They look at the price in the export market. If the price in the export market is not good, they look at the domestic market. Domestic market is processing plants like your root and sunflower processing plants, where you sell them that the sunflower raw as it is, and then they are responsible for agro processing and selling of product. Then the third and last option is that then they look at processing it themselves within the group. So you find that 15 farmers have established a well-oiled machinery to take product of 15 farms at the cost of 3 farms. So those are some of the things that we also need to do as emerging black farmers. And I'm saying this as a solution to market access. But what is the market? Is that price at the right time? So it's very important to study the market and make sure when you scale up, you already have markets that are identified. Because you don't want to sit with 50,000 bags of potato and nowhere to take them. So I hope that it has answered the issue of market. On the issue of professionals starting, go go back home, it's the easiest. Yes, you might be somewhere in employment, but use 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 the connections where it is the easiest to gain access to land first, because that's your starting yield, that's your starting harvest. Don't start with the most difficult. Start with the easy one. Plant 10 hectares of sunflower and yield, and then say, okay, now that I've done 10 successfully, I can use whatever I've made to now go and procure or release more land. So don't over exhaust yourself and you find that you spend all of your money on access to land, but you have nothing to buy seedlings, you have nothing to. So that is just the advice that I'm giving to young people. And work in groups, guys. You know, the risk in farming is high. You can get floods. I don't want to give many examples of guys that have met disaster in farming because I don't want to scare you. It's risky, but it's also highly beneficial. So work in groups to mitigate the risk. I thank you, Chair.
No, thank you very much, Dr. Daniel Mukumo, and to the rest of the colleagues. I think we have exhausted parts of the conversation. I do not know whether we have others who still want to share any inputs surrounding the topic. I'll just leave it up for a minute or so to see whether we have any inputs. And if not, we'll rush to the closure of this event.
Chair?
I'm here, Chair.
I wanted to also comment to, and we discuss this issue of what we are seeing during some of the shortlisting and interviewing of candidates, especially the youth. Am I allowed to comment on that?
No, please, you're more than welcome. I think I'll also have a follow-up clarity on that, because I'd asked our guests to also deliberate on that, on the systematic challenges that are faced by young people as they want to climb the ladder going forward and stuff. So yeah, you're more than welcome to share that.
Okay. Part of the problem, Chair, is most of the time when people are applying, especially I'm gonna stick mostly to the people that we see who are applying for these junior posts, especially post people just apply for the sake of, let me apply because these are the current jobs that government is offering. This creates a problem that in the CVs that we see, people do not actually look at the job descriptions that is there to match the skill that they currently have. I'm gonna give an example of a cleaner that was working in ShopRite. The person basically is doing exactly what is needed on the CV or as part of the job description that says this person has to clean a floor, this person has to clean a particular room, this person has to take out bins and everything. The only challenge is when they are applying for a government institution, they do not want to talk about the experience that they have had as a cleaner in a particular department, maybe it was a ShopRite. They want to talk about what they have studied. And this person did a course where they were studying to become a secretariat, but they have experience in cleaning. When what we end up seeing is that a person will give us a CV full of, I have a degree in this, but they do not want to tell us about the experience that they have, and they do not want to even produce like a letter from their supervisor at Checkers to say, in here, I have experience of cleaning using this kind of chemicals, the same chemicals that we might use in any department a hospital or education department, they will tell us, no, I did a course in secretary or something like that, and they leave it at that. Now, when we're trying to shortlist and it clearly states on the job advert that we are requiring cleaners and they must produce a letter from a supervisor. Now, these people don't even read that. Now, we end up taking maybe 3 days or 4 days trying to shortlist these people. Then people complain that what we are doing is we are just taking a particular group of people and we are putting them in all these government jobs. And it's simple things that people are supposed to be doing. If you have the experience in cleaning, write about it in your CV. When people ask you a question in interviews, listen, try to answer what you are being asked, because we don't I've seen people not being asked difficult questions and people cannot even explain what their experiences out there. They're supposed to be talking about experiences of, if I have experience of assisting a teacher and this is what I was doing in that particular, then say that. Don't try to fit things which you can't even answer to, because basically most of the time we ask you what's in your CV once you've been shortlisted. And some people can't even tell that, okay, I studied from this year to this year, I did my matric on what particular year. From that year, had experience cleaning in any particular space. They can't even say that. They will tell you, after I finish, I haven't been employed. Only to discover later when you are talking to the person in the street or when you meet these people and they want to find out, because you can't actually talk about what happened in the interview, but you can talk to them about trying to advise what should they be doing. And it's simple thing. Let's talk to the experience that is needed on the job description that is in the advert. Then you will be fine. And the youth will start understanding and they will get the experience of what happens when you are being interviewed. What are the challenges when it comes to shortlisting, so that we don't get into this space of why are many people not being hired and why are some people continuously being hired. So, Chair, with those few words, I just wanted also to talk to the challenge that we seem to be having when we are trying to make sure that the youth is employed out there. People are not basing their um, CVs, their experiences on what the advert requires. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to also talk to that.
Thank you. I think I'm much more happier because the conception is that the problem is mostly with the system, but then we often don't look at ourselves in terms of some of the mistakes that we make when making applications or when we are trying to fight through the system, because simple mistakes like that, you cannot blame it on the system when you're actually the one who has faltered. Because even if there is a fellow Black brother or a person who understands that they need to transform the system, who needs to assist, how then do they come off assistance when you have missed such small issues that you need to attend to as your own obligation as the applicant towards it? So I think I'm quite happy in terms of the direction of the conversation. And I see there are no more comments. There's no one who wants to either add a comment or rather a question. It appears that we are all at peace with what has been discussed. And before we close it off, I would also just like to ask again if there is anyone who would want to share in a comment, and then we'll take it from there. It appears we have no more questions, no more comments surrounding the discussions that we had today. With that, colleagues, I would like to thank everyone who has made it to the event. It is really much appreciated. We understand people are committed to personal activities, but then you did manage to give us time to come to the event, listen, contribute. Your contributions are very much valuable to us. And I also just like to say to those that may have challenges in the land-related matters, I know very well our chairperson in the association, Mr. Matumi Chidi, who runs his own law firm in the name of Chidi Attorneys. He has done quite a lot of work surrounding the issue of land. So if you happen to have any legal issues that you may need assistance with, he may be of value in terms of assisting you with that. I see there is a hand from, I can't pronounce the name, but then my brother, you are recognized, you can speak. You can unmute, my brother, you can speak.
No, Chairman. That was just a clapping of hand, not necessarily a raising of a hand. Thank you.
Oh, all right. No. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, with that being said, chairperson of the association, I would really just appreciate if you could just give us closing remarks and just thank everyone else that has attended.
Thanks, Chair of the session. Let me also thank my brother, Dr. Mukumo, for his insightful contribution to the debate and giving a perspective on the contribution that young people can make, in particular young professionals, to the growth of the country and also within the economic realm, because young people are still walking into the future. Elders do make decisions in this country and many other parts of the world, and they make decisions for young people, and in the main without young people. So if we were to gravitate towards important issues and aspects and segments of society, such as what was discussed here, farming, and many segments of farming, agro-processing, and others, we can make that contribution. But he also emphasized the importance of the state and the role that young people can make within the state. Obviously, if you were to talk about Limpopo, for instance, and you talk about lawyers, for instance, not all of us can go into the state, but those who can go into the state, go make a contribution and contribute to the extent that you can to ensure that there's growth of the economy and people benefit from the state, but also that on matters of land, we be given leadership as a country. So we are thankful, Dr. Mukumo, for that contribution, and everyone else who has contributed, and of course the host did give us proper direction in the discourse. We are very thankful of that. The conversation, it's recorded on YouTube. You can share it under Africana Justice Association. If you can go there, you can get the link, but also we'll share the link. You can share it with anyone else. This is the intention of the association, for us to create the necessary content that may contribute, whether this year, whether next year, but at any stage to any form of discourse in the country. So thanks very much for everyone who has attended, and that is my little contribution in closure. I suspect that is meant for closure, Chair of the session. Thank you, Chair of the session.
Yeah, correct, my leader. That was meant for closure, as we had actually given it an opportunity to others that may have anything else to share. But then it showed that no one had any comment, any question. So with that, thank you very much. And then I would like to propose for closure of the session. And thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.